Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sonic Frontiers commentary. Now, John, you were about to say something at the end of last part.
So, Tails mentions Dark Gaia, which means Sonic Unleashes canon. Just wanted to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes.
All right, so I think that kind of gets a little wishy-washy with the continuity in Sonic Frontiers is that we are going to learn in the Island 4 that the Chaos Emeralds are from outer space because they belong to the Ancients. However, the Gaia temples in Sonic Unleashed have been established as something that's been a part of the planet for millions of years.
Like the Master Emerald.
This game will establish this game is going to establish that the Ancients only arrived here tens of thousands of years ago.
Right.
They use those numbers specifically, so not as old as Dark Gaia and the planet itself. So if Dark Gaia and Light Gaia are a natural cycle of the world's, life, where Dark Gaia breaks up the world, Light Gaia brings back the world with the Chaos Emeralds and the Gaia temples, how's that work?
Chaos Emerald stuff gets added to the temples later. Easy. Ancient cultures are going to build stuff and rebuild stuff and renovate stuff.
How did Light Gaia bring back the planet the first time, though?
I don't know. Master Emerald, maybe. That was established as already being here.
Master Emerald...
Just lying in a field, too.
Master Emerald... I mean, I know, like, at the end of the day, who gives a shit, but... The Master Emerald, to my knowledge, has the power to neutralize the Chaos Emeralds, but it is not a Chaos Emerald in itself.
Yeah, but it can still shoot lasers if you put it in a machine, so it's got a lot of power. I mean,
well, I think at that point it's just a glorified battery.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, it could be used for more things than we necessarily know it's been used for.
Right, and I don't doubt that at all. I mean, at the end of the day, I say this in my review too. I just think they forgot.
I don't think they forgot. I just think that Ian Flynn isn't afraid to be a bit more specific about continuity that has been hitherto very vague. So he's fine with saying the Chaos Emeralds came from space. He's fine with saying the Master Emerald was already here for some reason.
Well, the Chaos Emeralds were from space, though. I don't even think that be an Ian Flynn thing. That's a huge thing. I would think Sonic Team would have to set that.
Well, yeah,
up.
It probably was them. But, they would probably have been a little reluctant to specify things like that. They probably would have left it like a big old question mark as to how the Chaos Emeralds were related to this ancient civilization, as they have done every time that kind of connection has been established previously. The Chaos Emeralds are connected to the Gaia temples, but the game never even tries to imply the nature of that connection. It's just taken for granted that the ancient civilization used the Chaos Emeralds for some reason at some point to power their Gaia temples into a giant Megazord because, of course.
Yeah. No, I'm not. At no point am I saying that the Chaos Emeralds they belong to the Gaia temples. It's just they were used, but at the same time, it's been established that the Gaia temples have been a thing for millions of years.
But not necessarily unchanged,
Yeah.
But the other thing about Light Gaia in Sonic Unleashed is that we didn't see Light Gaia at its full intended power because Eggman cracked the planet too early. That was true of Dark Gaia as well, but
Yeah.
The bottom line is canon's weird, but it's not exactly like plot hole ridden weird. It's more, this is the first game that's really tried to care about continuity all that much weird. So it's kind of playing catch up in a way, which sums up Ian Flynn's tenure on the Archie comic pretty well.
Well, I mean, they can always just retcon it later by saying there was a whole other set of emeralds or some other shit.
Super emeralds.
How many emeralds were there in Sonic Spinball? 14, all blue.
I lost count after 36. Actually, wait, no, I can probably answer this. There was 3 in Toxic Caves. There was 3 in Lava Powerhouse. There was 5 in the Machine, and there was 5 in Showdown. So I can't do fucking basic math, dude.
That would be 16.
16. Okay.
6 and 10, All right, here we go. So 16 Chaos Emeralds. That's more emeralds than there have ever been in any Sonic game ever, including the Super Emeralds. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, because that's only amounts to 14.
15 if you count the Master Emerald, but, still more.
I don't.
The thing is, though, even the Super Emeralds weren't, characterized as being extra emeralds, just the 7 emeralds charged up,
Again.
Set up in the Master Emerald Shadow and powered up by the magic of doing Blue Sphere really good.
It really is a magical time.
But so I don't think we'll ever see a situation where there are new emeralds introduced into the continuity. But the Phantom Ruby, for as weird as that plot point was in Forces, does present some interesting possibilities. And there are also the Chaos Drives.
From Adventure 2?
Yeah, which are... Okay, Sonic Adventure 2's lore is really weird and vague, but basically they're implied to be small-scale fake emeralds that Gerald Robotnik invented. So... they power things in the same way a Chaos Emerald would power things. They're just really weak and small scale.
Right, because I always just took them as just generic energy sources.
Yeah. Well, Sonic Adventure 2 is really crap at establishing its own lore. But basically, the Chaos Drives are there to establish that you can create fake emeralds with similar properties. You can create artificial chaos. See? But,
So you're there.
the only, plot point that ever supports, and it supports it very badly because it's only established in a really vague way, is that Tails can create an actual fake emerald, and Sonic can use that to use chaos powers because they're made of the same stuff as the Chaos Drives,
Yeah. I would appreciate that if that was elaborated on. Not that I really cared about it, but it's like a throwaway line is I used all those Chaos Drives you busted out of those robots to make this.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Sonic Adventure 2 really crap at establishing its lore.
Yeah. I would not mind a re-release or a remake of that game with the Ian Flynn behind the scenes just to
imagine Sonic Adventure 2 with the same kind of plot expansion reimagining cutscene quality as the likes of Resident Evil 2 remake or Final Fantasy 7 remake.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not quite as much additional character material, but, more attention to detail, basically.
Yeah. More attention to detail, I think, is the key statement there. Yeah, I'd like that.
It would be cool.
But that just kind of goes into the same old, they need to remake Adventure 1 and 2 argument again. And it's that's kind of just a no shit thing at this point. But it's I really think it'd work.
I feel like they're almost at a point where that could happen because if they fine-tuned Frontiers a little more and shed all the developer enforced physics restrictions, they could reasonably build a Sonic Adventure remake in this engine now.
Well, I'm reading an article saying that it's very likely that the next game after this will not have the boost at all.
Really?
So I'm thinking they are just going to go back to an adventure-esque formula.
They already depowered the boost pretty hard in this game, come to think of it.
To the point of it being distracting, I would argue.
It's really hard to remember in the cyberspace stages that when you boost, you will get hit if you touch an enemy instead of the other way around.
Also, your boost lasts for a split second before you have to feel like you have to mash the button again. The boost is just very underwhelming outside of the islands.
It's more that the boost isn't allowed to maintain itself when you're in midair, so every time you leave the ground for even a short time, you need to remember to hit the boost again when you're on the ground. Only when you're actually running on the floor does the stamina meter actually matter. Which is really odd. Also, can I just appreciate how blithely they ripped off Breath of the Wild's stamina meter? Because holy shit, it's exactly the same. But, yeah, I can see them going in that direction. Maybe they're sort of doing this thing where they'll transition away from the boost by using the additional playable character DLC that they're adding to this game as a sort of jumping off point, where you'll play as Knuckles and Tails and Amy without any boost at all, and it'll make sense because they're not Sonic. But people will get comfortable playing with no boost again, and then they'll do Sonic Adventure 3.5. Or maybe they'll just hire the Sonic 06 Project 06 guys. That sounds like a smart idea.
Or whatever this other one's called. I think it's Sonic GT or some other shit.
Sonic GT is amazing. For all that it's 4 levels long, it's a really fun game. Like, it plays like Sonic Adventure, but the level design is really open and multi-tiered and really fast once you get going, but there's no boost whatsoever. It's basically all built on Sonic Adventure logic. And it's really freeing to play. Also, you can get yourself into some situations that in any other Sonic game would be instant death, but you can like land on a ledge inside of a pit and find a way to MacGyver your way out of the pit if you really care enough to do so. I mean, most players would be impatient and would probably just kill themselves before they even think to try, but I did it. It was fun. I like finding ways to get out of really difficult situations. It makes me feel like a god when I manage it.
I have to wonder if there was more playing with the skill tree at the end of the day, because it's so weird seeing your shit at 81 and there's nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Eventually it just goes to 99 plus and stays there and keeps filling up.
You're just staring at 99 forever.
Now, maybe those extra skill points will still be available when you get to play as the other characters, and they'll have their own skill trees. Who knows? That would be cool.
That'd be nice.
It would also mean that anyone who got the game at launch and played through it naturally and got as many excess skill points as I did would just be able to buy all the skill tree stuff for every character right away. This is me.
The Breath of the Wild thing.
This is me being extremely stubborn. Like, I know that there's a long, convoluted obstacle course rail thing that you can use to get to the top of the roof, right? But I don't want to.
We're witnessing quality assurance, Lewis.
Quality assurance, Lewis. No, this is hates the developers and will undermine them at every step, Lewis.
Like I said, quality assurance, Lewis.
Fair.
Think your game is fine? No, it's not. Anything but. Watch this.
I'm the guy that pile of coins on top of the tomb in Super Mario Odyssey was made for. Made it. I found a way.
Completely ignoring the 2D sections. Bravo. And you say you're not a speedrunner.
I'm not a speedrunner.
You definitely speed run through that part.
I just like finding novel and interesting ways to explore an open world game.
Sure.
I trace my obsession with that back all the way to Oblivion. Because Oblivion does this thing where there is no climbing mechanic at all, even though that was the thing they established as far back as Daggerfall. Maybe even Arena, but I'm not sure about Arena. I can't stand to play it. The old school, you have to use the arrow keys and all these keys across the keyboard, and you can't remap them aspect of that game is not easy to get past.
I just threw up my mouth a little bit.
Well, as comfortable as we are with WASD, that was actually a late invention of the 90s, so anything from the 80s is not going to have it by default, and a lot of old games do not allow remapping.
All right, here's what they mentioned, the doppelganger that they mentioned once, they never bring up again. I'm hoping this is what the DLC is actually focusing on.
Maybe.
Because this kind of just exists now as a throwaway line. It's like, there's an alternate version of me that says, no, you're a piece of shit. Like, you can't do anything. And then after that, it's never brought up again.
There's one Tails, and then there's one awesome Tails.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hope that doesn't mean that that we have a bunch of cyberspace levels to look forward to, though.
You're not me.
I would really rather play as these characters in the open zone. Thank you very much.
It's like, maybe at this point, like, whatever sort of dimensional prison they're in is tailor-made for a specific character. Like, maybe it's based on their psyche or some other shit.
Maybe.
Like, Tails like plays up the insecurities of him being player 2. I don't know what Knuckles would be, though.
Knuckles doesn't seem to have been affected by the cyberspace at all. just from the way he's acting about it.
Yeah.
He just kind of seems like he was getting impatient more than anything.
What if his fucking like cyber prison was just like the 3D pipe maze from like Windows 95? It's just like nothing's happening.
He came in unexpectedly, so they had nothing loaded for him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, actually.
I know this place from my memories. This is Launch Base Act 2.
But with the beta music, that's nowhere near as interesting.
Oh, no.
So then I have to argue. No, Amy is probably... Nothing's changed except there's no Sonic.
You know, she didn't mention anything about her cyberspace either, so I'm thinking that doppelganger thing might be a Tails only thing.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like it might be something specifically for Tails to play up his insecurities.
You know what would be wild is if they go the cyberspace route for the extra playable characters. Tails' levels were all him racing Sonic again.
Oh boy.
Sonic in his new deep voice. Hey, hey, hey.
No, but it's like instead of just like encouraging him, it's just constantly fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You can't even win, so don't even try. Get some help.
It's so weird that all the rails and stuff pop out, but then you can still see the like intricate block arrangements surrounding that goddamn sky platform. And that's like way on the other side of the island. And you can still see the squid.
The corruption is negligible, and the maps are so accurate.
Okay.
Not to mention the way they can imprint the map data directly into the user's mind. It's hard enough explaining.
You know, the fact that Tails brings up how they can imprint map data directly into the user's mind when they're a completely different species actually does remind me of a thing in Mass Effect. Because the ancient, long-dead Protheans actually did communicate and transmit information biologically into people's minds using their technology. And the plot of the first game, if you remember from our commentary, was finding a bunch of old Prothean beacons that would tell you the truth about how the Prothean civilization went extinct and what the conduit was and all of that. And it didn't work properly because it wasn't built for modern species. So Shepard only got a garbled nightmare mess of a vision.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, didn't that just lead to a bunch of like blink or miss it screen flashes? Or
Yeah,
some of the shit?
one of the main missions was to go find this Cthulhu plant on one of the planets, so that they, who remembered the Protheans, could biologically transmit a means of translating the old Prothean data into your brain. And it's just a really cool and complicated sci-fi thing. And wow, these chaos monsters must be pretty amazing because they skipped right over it. Sci-fi is always a kind of a tricky genre because depending on who your audience is, you have to go to different gradients of detail to even hold their attention. Like some people you'll really lose them if you go into any real detail at all.
Squid.
And some people straight up won't care if you skip over that kind of detail because they see it as a sign that you don't care and you haven't thought through your concepts very well at all. I guess it depends on how into actual science you are. But it's funny because, like, not all sci-fi is super detailed or in-depth, but some of the most influential sci-fi, influential in the sense that it got people's imagination juices flowing for actual inventions, I mean, not pop cultural influence. Some of the most influential sci-fi out there is stuff like Star Trek. And Star Trek is an old television show. They don't got time or budget to go into that much detail. They'll just throw nonsense phrases and act like it makes sense onto the screen, and people will buy that and make up weird 60s era proto-wiki articles about it. I don't know. How did people sort out the lore, the deepest lore of old Star Trek back in the days before the internet? Oh God, they probably actually had to physically go to conventions for that. God,
I was going to say,
Physically go to conventions and exchange their fan fiction with each other, yeah. I know fan fiction at least predates the internet. But
how would you go sharing that with other folks outside of sharing notes and shit like that?
you would go to conventions and share it there. That's how they did it.
All the kids in the comments just going, gasp.
But I imagine because of that, there would be a significantly lower ratio of terrible stories to decent ones. Because I don't imagine someone would be super de-duper willing to share their fiction if they weren't at least somewhat confident in it. The thing about sharing fan fiction on the internet is people just write whatever and share whatever.
And anybody can offer feedback or criticism.
Yeah.
Also anonymous, so
yeah,
you don't have to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And then if you read a story and offer some constructive criticism, they'll claim that you're flaming them and hurting their feelings. And my favorite fan fiction saying online is don't like, don't read. Because it's such a paradox. How do you know if you like something before you've read it? Oh well. People are silly. And a disproportionate number of fanfiction authors are very young. So I should probably cut them some slack.
Don't hate watch.
I say this as someone who started writing fanfiction during my teenage years, so I am.
I started as early as middle school, but it wasn't so much fan fiction. It was more like just fan comics. I would draw a lot. And then I had a fan fiction phase in high school that was very self-indulgent.
As most fanfiction at that age tends to be.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when fanfiction.net had a lot of script format fanfics that were just crack fics. People...
Crack, can you explain that? Crack fix.
Crack is basically crazy humor. You know, you don't give a shit about anything making sense. So meta humor out the eyeballs.
Yeah. But no actual crack.
Character bashing, character aggrandizing, characters snarking about their circumstances in a very meta way, that kind of thing. I'm old enough to remember when a lot of Legacy of Kain fanfiction was script format crack fics about how Vorador was a pervert and Raziel had a chronic phobia of block puzzles. Because all of the puzzles in Soul Reaver 1 are block puzzles, and I can understand being afraid of block puzzles after that. The Vorador being a pervert thing is a bit more obscure, because he has these vampire brides in his mansion in Blood Omen 1 that you don't really think about while you're playing through the game, because they're just enemies, but goddamn, there are a lot of them.
Let me know if you find anything.
He might have had something else going for him in the way of running gags if they had finished the chess puzzle room, but they never managed to get that working, so... Hey, cut content.
Hey, Sonic.
Anyway, this is our first tutorial for the Ikaruga. Or the not Ikaruga. Basically, it's...
Ikaruga near hacking game. It's also very similar to the fucking hacking game from... Sly Cooper.
The thing that might throw you off about this is that later in the game you have to fight a boss in Ikaruga form. And in that boss you have full movement control of your ship.
Yeah.
But here you're stuck at the bottom, along the bottom row, and you can't actually move up along the x-axis. Or is it the y-axis?
You're stuck on the x-axis.
Yeah. I can never remember which of the other two axes corresponds to anything. I just know Z is 3D.
Z is 3D, Y is up and down, X is left and right.
Yeah, well, it's easier to remember Z is 3D because that's a natural mnemonic, you know? It memorizes
I know
itself.
it is the final letter of the alphabet.
it memorizes itself, you know? It rhymes. But, like, I always forget because it's been literal years since I've done actual math in a classroom setting where which axes go where on a graph.
Great music though. I love the hacking music. Actually,
Yeah, it's fun. This is purely here as a tutorial for the final boss, but you would never guess that.
Imagine telling somebody like, what?
And like, speaking of Mass Effect, we just did the mining laser sequence from frickin' what was it?
Thank God the plants are unharmed.
Whatever planet that Liara was trapped on. The mining laser blasting a cave through the bottom to get where you need to go, you know? Only that had significantly less Ikaruga. You just clicked on a control panel and they did the thing. Actually, there might have been a hacking minigame, I'm not sure. I tend to forget that when it comes to Mass Effect 1.
Might still be lurking around.
I hear that.
As something at that size, is it still a badnik?
I mean, I guess.
Just call it a giant fucking robot.
Huh.
Like, just saps all the menace away.
That might be the point. Maybe Eggman reclaimed Badnik from Sonic as well. You know? Because Badnik sounds like a very 90s Sonic word to make up.
Yes.
So I can imagine Sonic being the one to coin the term. What's the appropriate Spider-Man theme for this minigame?
Spider-Man theme?
Well, yeah, because swinging through these sort of timed nonsense field things in a timing challenge in the open world is a very
Unfortunately, all I think is the fucking pizza theme now, when you said that specifically.
Man, no one has any appreciation for Ultimate Spider-Man these days.
I never played it.
You really should. It's one of the best Spider-Man games out there. I think of it as vastly superior to Spider-Man 2. But, you know.
Now, is that Spider-Man 2 PS1 or Spider-Man 2 the licensed movie-based game?
The licensed movie-based game that everyone
Okay.
thinks is the best Spider-Man game ever. And I've for years I've been saying this. Ultimate Spider-Man is better. It's also extremely funny. They have some great humor in the cutscenes. I'm a little on and off about the Venom stuff in the game, but it doesn't really outstay its welcome whenever it happens, so I can't really hold that against the game. I guess the reason people don't really give Ultimate Spider-Man the attention it deserves is because it was a cel-shaded game, and this was during the era where people were all, like, really gung-ho about games having a realistic, edgy visual tone.
Do you remember what year it was specifically?
I don't remember what year, but I can look it up. Give me a
Because I would also make the argument that that was during the time frame where there was a lot of crappy licensed superhero games released around that time. I think people just kind of lumped it in with the others, despite it actually being good.
Maybe. This was 2005. September 19th, 2005. So pretty late in its generation too.
Just around the time of Superman Returns and Batman Begins.
Yeah, it might have been a timing issue, but it is a really good game. I recommend it.
Yeah, because I have no doubt that there were diamonds in the rough during that era. It's just that there was a lot of fucking rough.
Also, apparently it was released on Windows, so let me check.
What, like GOG?
No, I'm checking my abandonware to see if it's been released at all, like in the intervening years. Yeah, this is up on my abandonware. This hasn't been re-released at all in ages. So, have fun, kids. Oh well. This room, I like this room. But I also hate this room because it's like a microcosm of everything annoying about this game, where it's this big explorative open space, but then smack cutting straight through the middle, you have this 2D locked in obstacle challenge. And this is actually one that you can't enter without triggering the lock.
Yeah, the trigger's like all over this place.
Yeah, they made sure to lock that one down hard. That also means that it's really hard to get out of that if you entered it without exploring the rest of the area and you want to go back and do that.
You'd have to deliberately fall down one of the pits.
Yeah. And then it's...
But again, I have to stress again, like, this stuff right here is fucking thematically more interesting than any cyberspace level.
Oh, yes.
I just don't know why the entire game just could have been all this.
Finding all these underground dungeons.
Yeah, these ruins and shit.
Yeah.
And just exploring.
Hell, I'd like to see more shit like this in Breath of the Wild, too.
Yeah.
Like, they had a few sequences like this in Breath of the Wild.
You know, like doing the Naruto run, running at Mach 5.
Well, I mean, you can mod it in. There's probably a Sonic
you can achieve Mach 5 already in the game just by smacking a tree in stasis. You know, but still.
You don't even need to do that. Just launch yourself with your own bombs. The bomb launch is a favorite speedrunning tactic because it requires almost zero preparation, just timing.
My favorite speedrun tactic of Breath of the Wild is like, I don't remember exactly how the setup is, but it results in you shield bonking somebody like on top of the head with like when you know that trick you can do when you can ride the shield as a surfboard.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. It involves that, but bonking a moblin on the head at a specific angle on a specific time that it essentially you fly.
Yeah. Well, the other component to that, I think, is that the physics of the game are extremely weird when you go into bullet time.
Right.
And you can exploit the game's physics really hard that way. So it results in a lot of really violent physics reactions if you can time it properly. And that's part, I think, of how the bomb launch works, where you just multiply the physics reaction of you being hit by your own bombs by a ridiculous amount, and you go flying.
I love shit like that. Like, it's not Breath of the Wild, but I did something similar in Sonic 06 because, of course, you can do something like that in that game. Where one of the DLC levels involving, I think it was Rouge or just Team Dark in general, was so horseshit that I did a glitch where if you glide towards the ground and pause buffer right before you touch the ground and unpause, Rouge will just fucking go skyrocketing upwards and you just glide over everything.
Oh, man. It's like the prototype version of the Knuckles flight glitch from Doom. But this isn't even like technically pausing. This is triggering bullet time by doing aerial archery and stuff. So a little bit more complicated to get working, but you can do some pretty interesting stuff with it. Of course, you can do some pretty interesting stuff with Breath of the Wild in general. For example, if you manage to get a Guardian's D-legged head on top of a raft, for some reason, it causes the raft to float in the air. And people have built aircraft out of Guardians and rafts.
That's right. I think I did see that at one point.
And this is something that you can just do if you manage to get the different parts and pieces to interact with each other. It's extremely rare to happen in natural gameplay because there aren't very many rafts and none of them are in places where Guardians are like directly next to them or anything. So I have no idea how anyone discovered this, but yeah.
A lot of time and patience.
A lot of time and patience. You gotta manipulate the Guardian placement. You gotta transport the raft from one place to another. People discovered fairly quickly that you could at least transport rafts by attaching Octorok balloons to them. You know, in large enough quantities to lift that big thing. I think that was the prototype spacecraft that they crafted that tried to fly across Hyrule on an Octorok balloon raft.
Yeah.
But they realized they couldn't manipulate the directions, so they went looking for another component that could do that.
Lots of people died.
Well, probably. It's a long fall.
Their sacrifices will never be forgotten, but man, there were a lot of sacrifices.
Breath of the Wild is one of those miracles of game design where when you're playing naturally, nothing ever breaks, but you can break a lot of shit if you do it on purpose in very interesting ways.